Good evening, friends, and thank you for joining us as we continue the 14-year anniversary celebration of the Seeds of Light Spiritist Center. Tonight, we'll be having a guest speaker. His name is Marcos de Clay, and his talk of tonight is titled The Spiritist Center and the Christ. We're going to take a few moments to let people come in the room. While we're waiting, I just wonder if somebody could let me know if this is coming in clear as far as the audio, if everyone can hear me. Once I know that everything's working okay, we'll go ahead and start. I did make the mistake one time of starting before we were ready, and I don't want to do that again. Loud and clear. All right, thank you. Then I guess if everything's working well, we'll go ahead and say welcome, friends. My name is Lori Lochavo, and I have been with the Seeds of Light for about 5.5 years now as part of the English study group. I have to say that I'm so grateful for the center, for the study, everyone involved, that it has really been a blessing in my life. And all week long, we've been celebrating the anniversary of the Seeds of Light and all of its works. It's really been wonderful to hear how the center started and to see just how much it's grown. We're going to go on, and I'm going to do the message tonight from our daily bread. The number is 62. Jesus for men and women. And being in form as a man, he humbled himself, being obedient to death, the death of a cross. Paul, Philippians 2:8. The Master came down in order to serve, from splendor to darkness, from eternal dawn to complete night, from the stars to the manger, from the infinite to limitation, from glory to carpentry, from grandeur to self-denial, from the divinity of the angels to the misery of humankind, from the company of sublime spirits to the company of sinners, from being governor of the world to being servant of all, from magnanimous creditor to slave, from benefactor to persecuted, from savior to one forsaken, from emissary of love to victim of hatred, from redeemer of the ages to prisoner of the shadows, from heavenly shepherd to oppressed lamb, from a powerful throne to the cross of martyrdom, from sanctifying word to anguished silence, from advocate for his creatures to defenseless defendant, from the arms of friends to the company of thieves, from giver of life eternal to one sentenced to the valley of death. He humbled himself and dimmed his light so that men and women could rise and shine forever. O Lord, what have you not done for us so that we might learn the way of glorious resurrection into your kingdom? Oh, that is a very powerful and beautiful message. Okay, I'm going to move on now to the opening prayer. Heavenly Father, Master Jesus, We thank you for this opportunity to come together in fraternity tonight with our brothers and sisters. We thank you for the message that we're going to hear tonight. And Lord, we ask your help in helping us to open our minds to understanding, and more importantly, to open our hearts to feel it. And Lord, as we conclude our celebration tonight of 14 years with the Seeds of Light Spiritist Center, we give thanks and we ask for your blessing on the center, that it may continue to grow in your light, that all the members who are here tonight, those who couldn't be with us, receive your blessings. And with your permission and by your grace, we ask permission to begin our study of tonight, and so be it. Now we're getting ready to introduce our guest speaker tonight. His name is Marcos D. Clay. I think I said it right. And his talk is titled The Spiritist Center and the Christ. So Marcos has worked as a Spiritist doctrine apprentice for over 20 years, a period in which he facilitated youth evangelization activities in Brazil and Canada, and who recently started a task in South Florida with the Conscious Living Spiritist Center. Apprentice father of 2 young women, 11 and 17 years old, respectively. So now it's my pleasure to welcome our friend Marcos D. Clay. Hi, Marcos.
Hi, Lori. Good evening.
Nice to see you. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you, and our friend Patricia for the kind invitation. It's such a joy to be here with you all. I also want to give a good evening and a warm welcome to everyone who are joining us this evening. It is certainly a special evening to be here celebrating 14 years with the Spirit Society Seeds of Light. Quite an accomplishment. And I had the privilege to join the meeting on Monday when the founders and some of them that I met on Monday spoke a little bit about the history of the center, how it formed. I heard from Maísa and Eliane, Etienne, Adele, Alberto, Jana, whom I have known for a while, Janaína, and also Linda and Juliana, and everyone on the center. I didn't have a chance to meet everyone, but it was great to meet you all. I actually learned that the center has been, before it became official, it was already ongoing and started in, I think, Maísa's and Eliane's house, as many Spiritist centers formed, reminding us on how Jesus started his mission of bringing the moral code of the gospel to us, right? In the humble homes of the fishermen at that time. And I think the center here has been running for maybe over 20 years. So congratulations once again. It's an honor for us to be here in such a special date, but most importantly, because through the meetings this week, I came to learn the amount of hard work and sacrifices and dedication that you all have for this house, and how seriously you care for the work you do. So thank you. And as Laurie said, we will share some reflections about the Spiritist Center, about our Master Jesus, building on top of, a few things that Saulo brought to us so nicely done yesterday. And these are some humble reflections and some practical considerations for us. I always like to ask the why for things. And this year particularly is such a challenging year for all of us. And we're getting closer to Christmas, where the Christmas spirit make it easy for us to remind ourselves of Jesus. And it's important that we reflect on our understanding of Spiritism, the Spirit Center, and Jesus himself, who sometimes for our confused minds seems so far. Sometimes we may even doubt, did he really existed, or was just stories or images created? And especially for those who have kids, it's important that we ask those questions and we're not afraid of those questions, and we find answers for them, right? And speaking about kids, we do have a teenager now. We are working hard to get her into college next year already. And it's really impressive to see the number of great schools that we have in the United States, around South Florida. It's also impressive to see the price of those schools, which is unbelievable, but we'll get there. So she wants to be a nurse, right? And we know how hard doctors and nurses and frontline workers have been working and dedicating themselves to help those suffering with COVID and beyond, right? So many illnesses. So it's a noble profession. And we were reflecting about this. What she's going to learn, right? She's going to learn techniques on how to care for the patient. She will learn maybe principles of chemistry to understand how to manipulate drugs, doses, a little bit of physics, maybe how temperature affects or movement affects the substances, right? The molecules. She will learn about biology. If someone is going to a different field on want to be a lawyer, we'll have to understand about the laws, right? And help people to defend their rights, help the people who made mistakes to obviously face the consequences and hopefully not repeat those. And that's how the universities help us, right? With our intellectual knowledge. And we are very fortunate to have so many resources available to us nowadays. But Humberto de Campos was a journalist in Brazil, and after he passed away, through the mediumship of Chico Xavier, or Chico Xavier, in the book Chronicles from Beyond, or Crônicas de Além Túmulo. Forgive me, this translation is not great because the book is still in Portuguese. Humberto de Campos, or Brother X, as his pseudonym, he actually, or nickname, he wrote in 1937 the following. At that time, he said, "Today, more than before, more than ever before, the human society needs to seek help from the invisible world to reorganize its energy, or their energy, or our energy, in order to maintain their or our moral stability." So if we need to reorganize our energies because our energy is disorganized, and if we need that to maintain our moral stability, it's because our moral stability is a threat, or we are totally unstable, which is very common. So seek help from the invisible world. Very important. But very often I talk to my kids about, you talk to your friends about God and spirituality, and many of them will say, well, they don't have any beliefs of that sort. They don't feel comfortable talking about it. So for more that we see so many religions around, there is still a good amount of us who are still living a material life, right? We can certainly rely on the schools and universities to give us intellectual knowledge, which is very important to progress. But there is a piece of the puzzle very important that is lacking. Allan Kardec asked the spirits about the progress, right? And the spirits answer to him that there are two types of progress. There is intellectual progress and there is moral progress that derives from the intellectual progress. As we are able to rationalize and understand right or wrong, we are able to exercise our free will and make better choices, and therefore we choose to do good things, to respect the rights of others, the limits of others and ours as well. So we are saying this because the institutions on earth can form professionals and citizens. The nurses and doctors can always help the pain and the illnesses in great extent. There's always going to be volunteers and organizations, charitable hearts and hands that can help those who need clothes and need food and shelter. Especially nowadays, we see so many people losing their jobs due to the pandemic. Those are certainly noble actions. But those, in many cases, are a temporary relief, a temporary aid. And the missing component, which is that moral side of our awakening or our evolution, if we don't have that piece, then we will always be struggling, right? To walk with our own feet, to face the challenges and the hardship that we always face in this planet, considering its nature of trials and expiation. So there's always going to be those challenges in the planet, because those are the lessons that we need to learn and grow and develop. And then, as a solution to the root of all the challenges, all the hardships, Dr. Bezerra de Menezes, in the book The Spirit of Truth, he says the following: the only efficient aid or medication to all the afflictions that we see and we experience on earth is the gospel of Jesus in the human heart. But Marcus, I'm sorry, I disagree. If people are hungry, they cannot eat the gospel. Yes, of course not, right? That's always, we said, it's important. If people need shelter, if they're homeless, they have no food, they are sick, they need medicine, we need to provide for the body, for the physical needs. But we also need to provide for the immortal spirit, seeking help from the invisible world, right? Helping us to understand our immortal nature, because we are immortal beings, as one of the core teachings that Jesus brought to us. So we cannot eat the gospel, but the gospel can help us to understand our challenges, our misfortunes of life. It helps us to understand, the gospel can help us to accept ourselves, to accept our imperfections. And we have such a hard time to accept ourselves, to accept our imperfections. And personally, sharing with you all, if you don't mind, that 2020, this has been the biggest challenge for myself: self-compassion. The gospel can offer us comfort and encouragement whenever we fall down, whenever we make a mistake or repeat that mistake. It gives us encouragement to stand up and dust ourselves off and move on and continue with our journey. Because sometimes we think we are at the bottom, the rock bottom, there's no solution. And sometimes we may think that the solution is to take our lives. And we see the number of suicide, depression, and suicide around the world skyrocketing because we have no hope, no consolation, no understanding of the trials, the challenge that we are facing. Why? And no understanding that they will pass. They will pass. We remember a story which is in the book Boa Nova, Good News, from Chico Xavier, and I think Humberto de Campos as well. And they talk about the sad disciple. They talk about Bartolomeo or Nathanael. And Nathanael was one of the most dedicated disciples, but he was always sad. And one day he came to Jesus, who was always optimist about life, who was always full of joy, that there's always hope. He had utmost trust in God. And Nathanael, listening to his stories, he was sad because for him, he had gone through so many hardships. He lost his mother. His business partners were always taking advantage of him. And he came to Jesus and said, Master, don't I have reason to be sad, to be down? Right? How can I always be uplift? I lost my mother. And Jesus would come to him and say, Bartolomeo, who is lost in this world? Since God, we are always under the protection of God. No one is lost, my son. Your mother continues her path. Trust in God. What do you prefer? To lose the experience that you are having, lose your peace of mind, going to bed knowing that you are an honest person, or you prefer to be successful in the business at all cost? Which success is important for you? It's the temporary success of your business, or your success of your spiritual enlightenment, which will last to the eternity. So Jesus brings that perspective of the invisible world, the perspective of the immortal life, the immortality. And we forget about this. Our kids don't get to know about this because we don't talk as much with them. That's one of the core things that Spiritism can offer to us, and the Spiritist Center can offer to us. And Jesus, after he was crucified, he came back, right? He came back to tell us and let us touch on his body, materialized, to say, we are immortal. You too. You can do the things I do and much more if you wish to do so, right? That's the gift that he gave to us. He is the gospel of God for us, right? He exemplified everything and he left that code, the path for all of us. And the Spiritist Center and Spiritism has that mission, right? Oh, Marcus, is that only the gospel then? How about the other non-Christian religions? And we hear those questions from our kids as well. How about the Muslim? How about, the Jewish and others? And we learn through Spiritism and the profound foundation that Allan Kardec left to us, that Spiritism embraces all beliefs and religions that lead us back to God, back to the Creator, that help us to better ourselves, even if we disagree in certain points, right? The essence is the same because God is only one, independent of the name we call. So every religious doctrine that lead us to God and lead us to be a better individual deserves our respect. However, says Emmanuel in the book, In the Portal of Light, the gospel of Jesus is the magnificent moral universal code that is valid in anywhere across the universe. Once we learn and incorporate and live those principles, we will enable ourselves to live anywhere in any of the happy worlds around the universe. It's the ultimate moral code for the universe because it is the expression of the natural law, as Saulo mentioned yesterday, or the law of God, which are the same. Mahatma Gandhi once said, if we lost all the literature, all the books and the scriptures around the world, and we had only left Jesus' Sermon of the Mount, a Sermon of the Mountain with its Beatitudes, nothing would have been lost, because it is the summary of the principles that we see present in all the religions and moral doctrines in the planet. Why is that? Because Jesus, as we learned from Saulo yesterday, is the governor of a planet, is the responsible for the planet, and therefore his emissaries obviously came to work with the same set of principles. For us, Spiritists, Christians, our mission is really to adopt that I'm missing the word, the didactic, the teaching methodology of Pestalozzi, who was Allan Kardec's teacher, right? He had the triad: mind or head, heart, and hands. Our mission is really to take these reminders of the gospel and the teachings of Jesus, understand, rationalize, ask the whys, and assimilate in our hearts. Feel it. Break the rock that sometimes, for many of us, and I speak for myself, surrounds our hearts, that rock of selfishness and pride that suffocates our sentiments. We need to transform the knowledge of Spiritism, the knowledge of the gospel, and feel it and break it. And it hurts, but it's a beautiful transformation, so that that sentiment can be transformed into actions with your hands. Because it's not about doing. It's not a competition of question X of the Spiritist book, but it's a competition with ourselves to become better and to do what the Master taught us. And why Spiritism, we may ask, since we have the gospel and we had Jesus? Again, going to Emmanuel in the same book, he says, Spiritism is that comforter prophesied or promised by Jesus to all humanity, that would come with the goal, with the objective to explain all things in the right moment, when we had the maturity to assimilate, to understand the eternal truths of our immortal nature. Because he spoke about parables, right? He couldn't be that clear about reincarnation or the immortality of the soul and our nature and our future in the spiritual world. We were having a hard time to understand that there was God, and what are the attributes from God, and how should we behave in this planet, right? We wouldn't be able to understand everything, but now we can begin to understand. That's why I love this analogy that Chico Xavier made. He said, Jesus is the door, as Jesus himself told us, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one can go to the Father if not through me. So he left us the footsteps. He left us the path. So he is the door. He is the way to overcome our challenges, our imperfections, and the trials of life, in return to our home in the right day, when the day comes, as it is planned, in the best way possible, with our mission accomplished. He is the way. But how about Spiritism and Allan Kardec? How does it fit with the analogy of the door? Allan Kardec is the key to unlock and open that door. I found that so beautiful, because Jesus spoke about parables, and the Spiritism came to demystify, to unlock the teachings behind those stories that for us don't make any sense. Sometimes we read in some passages that we need to hate your mother and your father. What did he mean with that? And that's why so many people think it's a bunch of stories and it's nonsense, because we don't take the time, we don't have yet the maturity to say, let me find out about this. It takes time, it takes the right time. But the Spiritism is that key, and it's important that we use that key. We come to the Spiritist centers, we come to the study groups, we ask questions, we read the books. Oh, Marcus, it's too much hard work. It is hard work. It's easy to do the wrong thing. It is easy to blow a building apart, down, and implode the building in a few seconds. To build it, it may take years, right? And that's what we are here to build, a new man or a new woman, and it takes time. But we gotta begin. We gotta begin. Jesus has done it, so we can. Hence, friends, from the Spiritism to the Spiritist Center, I love this definition. Also from Emmanuel and Chico Xavier, from the book Study and Live. He has a definition of this Spiritist Center, a definition of the seeds of light. It says that the Spiritist Center, or the seeds of light, is the school of the soul, teaching us to live. This is not taught by the universities. This is not taught by the companies or corporations, by the schools. We have to dedicate time to remind ourselves of the invisible world, as Humberto de Campos said. We need to dedicate our times to remind ourselves of our immortality, and the Spiritist Center is a great place for that. Even if we cannot be all together right now, we are here together in this evening, using the blessing of technology that can bring us together, right? So the school of the soul, teaching us to live. And what we learn at the Spiritist Center, what we learn through the gospel of Jesus, through his examples that echo for more than 2,000 years and continue, is actually for us to apply in ourselves and use it not only in the Spiritist Center, which sometimes is already difficult because we are all imperfect people working together. And there are challenges even in the Spiritist Center. But in the Spiritist Center, there is the spiritual protection, the environment that the spirituality prepares. When we are with our families, when we are with our co-workers, when we are on the grocery store or driving, that's where we need to double click in the teachings that we learn so that we can apply. That is the true test for us. We cannot be Christians only in the Spiritist Center or be Spiritists only in the Spiritist Center. Actually, the terms are the same. The true Christian, the true Spiritist, they are the same. And they are not perfect. If you remember the definition from Allan Kardec, how do you recognize the true Spiritist or the true Christian? They are those who recognize by their efforts to control and transform their bad habits, their negative tendencies, and to become a better person. It's not with perfection, because none of us are. So the School of the Soul, and 2020 is ending, and if we haven't had enough time to be at the School of the Soul, let's reflect on that. Let's see what we can do differently next year, and dedicate time to be part of the School of the Soul, Seeds of Light, or any other spirit center that fits our schedule. Emmanuel complements, saying that the Spiritist doctrine redirects us to the primitive simplicity of the gospel. Rather than explaining what Jesus brought to us, removing the veil of allegories, right? Making things super clear for us. It also brings us the simplicity. There are no ceremonies and hierarchies or any accessories. It is the pure simplicity. It's not, simplicity doesn't mean lack of care. On the contrary, there's a lot of care, and it's even more work to get to the simplicity than the complexity, right? Whoever tried to summarize a text in a few words know how hard it is, how much time you put to simplify things. So it takes great care to go to the core of the lessons and into the application of the lessons on us. And he says that Jesus is the moral son of humanity. And when I read that, I said, may we all be like the sunflowers, always looking and following that sun, right? I love that analogy. The moral sun that shone in the past, shine today, and will shine even more intensely tomorrow. He will shine as always. And we were talking about the right time. Every single one of us has the right moment to awaken ourselves for the spiritual reality. And sometimes we lose patience with our family members, because when we see something beautiful, we want to give it to those who we love, and sometimes they are not interested yet, right? And Jesus, he divided human history before his coming and after his coming, right? If you go in the history books or calendars, it's before Christ and after Christ. And the interesting thing is, every single one of us in our existence, we also have that moment when we let the seeds of light that Jesus put in the soil of our hearts to germinate. Maybe it's still there. Maybe the knowledge is still in our head, but we didn't work hard yet to open up the soil so that it germinates and grows. But sooner or later it will. And we always remember Paul of Tarsus, the most feared persecutors of the Christians. In a given moment, Jesus awoke his mind, his spirit, and opened up his heart, and he became one of the most dedicated servants. So in the right proportion, maybe we are awakening. That's why we are here today together, instead of doing something else. It's a gradual process. If we feel that we have doubts, it's okay. Let's respect that. And let's see why we have doubts, and how can the Spiritist Center help? Asking questions, respecting your time without forcing, For certain people, they prefer other religions because it's in their level of understanding. And for some, we may need to have patience and wait a little bit, right? Time transforms everything. Even the seeds, if you plant any seed, we have to wait the natural law. And sometimes we awake by ourselves, by love, as they say, or sometimes the trials of life, the heat comes to break that germination and make it happen. So 2020 has many lessons for us. And for many of us, was the year that we started to awaken, that we started to let that seed germinate and grow. We started to think a bit more about the invisible world, about our immortal nature. We shifted the competition with others with the competition with ourselves. Am I better today than I was yesterday? So let's make sure tomorrow I'm better than I am today. Is a competition with ourselves, not with anybody else. So the challenge is we cannot go to the Spiritist Center because when we are doing such transformation, such hard and painful transformation, being alone is very difficult. And we want to be with others that are going through the same, because then we feel that we are not alone. There are others going through the same hardship and we support each other. But here we are, without being able to hug each other, without being able to share the cantina with the Brazilian treats, the coxinhas and all that we all love. But we have technology that bring us together. The trick with the technology is, are we really benefiting from it? Or as we used to do, I came from a different religion, and we used to leave the Bible open on the table because it was said it would protect us. No one would read the Bible, but it was always open. It would protect us. Well, obviously it didn't. We used to pray the Rosario, and I used with my mom, I used to pray with her, but I was flipping the little beads on the Rosario, just taking a peek at the TV, repeating the words. I wouldn't pay attention. So, and words are nothing to the Spirit. So I didn't have that understanding. And now with technology, sometimes I caught myself with the computer on and the speaker, like the Charlie Brown cartoon. I don't know what the speaker is saying, but I'm there. So this year, I have been really paying attention, saying, you better be there present. Because if you only keep your computer running, the computer do not need the gospel. We need the gospel. So if we cannot be at the Spiritist Center Seeds of Life, when we are there or in any lecture, the Spiritist Center, let's be present, as we heard in the initial prayer, right? With our minds and with our hearts together. It's very important, right? We have to connect, and we are connected because we're not only connected through the network here, but we are connected with our guardian angels, with the spiritual group that governs and guide the work, the spiritual work that happens for this fraternal network, which is the Spiritist Center Seeds of Light. So very important for us to make sure we are connected more than our computers until we can get together face to face again, right? And just to conclude our reflections about the Spiritist Center and about Christ, we are just Christmas is just around the corner, and a commitment that I'm making with myself, and I share with you all so you can evaluate for you and your family, is to remind ourselves of the meaning of Christmas, which is not only that exchange of presents and Santa Claus and the celebration of being together as a family, which is a big part of it, right? How many families, unfortunately, cannot be together with their loved ones physically? But thanks to Jesus, we can all be together spiritually, even if they are far in another country or if they are already in the spiritual realm. Our prayers and our thoughts unite us all. But the most important message is to remind ourselves or even ask ourselves, are we letting enough space for that message, for that seed of light that we have in our hearts, placed there by Jesus, grow? Are we letting it grow? It's a moment of reflection. And do we want that to grow? Because if we do, then it's a perfect moment to reflect, how can I make it happen in 2021? How can we take control of that? Because we do have a free will, independent of the circumstances, right? Little by little. Instead of material presents, can we give our family members and our friends, but especially the family, right? The first school that we all have, even before the School of Soul, which is the Spiritist Center, can we give them more acceptance? Can we give them more? Can we have more resignation for the things we cannot control? Can we practice more renunciation? Can we have more self-compassion? And you can make the list that you feel can make life better for each of us in every single one of our homes. It's a perfect reflection. Many people are taking some time off. It's important to have some quiet time because we cannot think those things. We cannot think about the things of the spirit or the heart with the business of our phones and rolling the screens or the TV, right, or computers. We need quiet time. And we often feel very uncomfortable in being quiet and being alone. And there's a big difference. We may be alone physically, but it doesn't necessarily we need to feel lonely because we always have God with us. We always have our guardian angels with us. So truly speaking, we're never alone. But we need a little bit solitude to reflect on things that are important, to reflect on things that we need to change. Even in history, if we think on the Bible, right? We were talking with Patricia earlier on the reflections from Sally yesterday about the Old Testament. We remember the Hebrew people going through the desert. It's an analogy as well. We remember John the Baptist, who before he started preaching that Jesus would come, the Messiah would come, he spent time on the desert in solitude. Jesus, when he came before he started his mission, he spent time in the desert. Not necessarily physical desert, but the analogy of that quiet time to reflect, to look at ourselves. And Paul, we just spoke about Paul of Tarsus. For those who know, as soon as he told Jesus, Master, what would you like me to do? He spent 3 years in the desert. So may we all, at the end of this year, no, you don't need to go to Phoenix, Arizona, no, the desert. No, that's not what I meant. But maybe take some time looking at your backyard or in your room, in your living room, or the beach. But let's just do some reflection. What are the things we can be grateful for this year? The blessings that we have and the things that we can do next year to change things for better. And remind ourselves that the Spirit Center is there. The volunteers are there. If we need help, if we're feeling hopeless, there's always the volunteers, even virtually. I'm sure there are volunteers on the Spirit Center, Seeds of Life, who can have a phone call with any of us and have those fraternal conversations when we need the most. And our guardian angels are always with us, just a prayer away. Dear friends, I conclude our very humble reflections for the night, leaving here once more our congratulations for the milestones of 14 years and wishing you another 14 years ahead, because the master needs workers, dedicated workers like all of you. So God bless you all. And with this, I would like to invite everyone for a brief final prayer, and then there will be a few announcements. So if you wish to do so, you can also close your eyes and continue with our minds and our hearts connected with the Master of the Masters. Let us be thankful for the few moments we had together to remind ourselves of his message of hope, his message of perseverance, his message of comfort. Thank you, Jesus, for your sacrifice, the ultimate sacrifice, and for your dedication. Thank you for your benevolence, for not giving up on us, even after repeating so many mistakes over and over again. Thank you for your teachings. And please, Master, be with us. May your guardian angels may be with us in every single one of our homes. May they continue to inspire us to persevere, to think more positive thoughts, to love ourselves more. May they help us to forgive ourselves more and to develop the love for our self-improvement. We ask, please, dear Lord, help our family members as well. And all of those who at this very moment may not be as fortunate as we are. Those who may be struggling on the streets, imprisoned, those who may be at hospitals, those who may have family members passing away in such a challenging year. May your message of hope and comfort find a space to penetrate and enlighten their hearts and their minds. Thank you once again, and we ask your blessings to conclude our meeting. Thank you, and so be it. Laurie?
Oh, yes. Thank you, Margaret. It was beautiful. Absolutely. And your talk tonight, you've given me some wonderful suggestions. I do the gratitude, but I like your idea of focusing on the changes that we want to make in ourselves and working on that. Thank you.
It's work in progress as well.
Absolutely. Okay, I have a little bit of an announcement to make, but first I want to thank everybody for being here this week to celebrate the 14-year anniversary of the Seeds of Life and all their wonderful works. I spoke with Jonna recently, and we were talking about the English monthly talk that has actually been going on for about 6 years now, and it is the last Tuesday of the month. And it's a very informative talk. There's many different topics in Spiritism that we discuss. And usually we don't have too many people joining us, at least not incarnate ones. And so we want to take this opportunity to invite everyone to join us in the new year. There's not always a lot of people there, but the workers are there and they're always doing what they need to do. So to conclude, we look forward absolutely to the day when we can reopen safely and all be together again. And as we close this 14-year celebration, we look forward to seeing you all for the 15-year anniversary. So thank you all again. And we appreciate you being here, Marcus. It was wonderful.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Absolutely.
And I wish everyone a peaceful Christmas and a blessed New Year to you all. Thank you again.
And to you, thank you.